Hello and welcome back to Royal Reviewer for another transmission. And today is the 22nd of March 2023, and I do have a few things that I want to talk about today that have been in the online sphere, I guess, over the past couple of days. I've got one story regarding Prince Andrew. I've got another story regarding Prince Harry. Yeah, it's all sort of, and also there's a warning. I've got a TikTok and Twitter warning, which I'll do at the end. And also I will share obviously what jewellery I'm wearing. Let's get straight into the first story, and I do believe this story actually appeared yesterday or the day before, on the 21st of March. It's reported as an exclusive, as they always are. Prince Andrew just wanted out. How the Duke of York went from stonewalling to reaching the reported $12 million settlement with Virginia Roberts-Giuffre in less than a week to avoid deposition and trial, the victim's lawyer reveals. So this is not idle gossip. This is actually from David Boys, I think you pronounce the name. Do correct me if I am wrong. But also, the $12 million supposed settlement, we don't actually know how much it was. Virginia's side is keeping very tightly zipped on it. Andrew's side is keeping very tightly zipped. But we did have a downgrade in the estimation, probably round about, I would say, 3 months ago. All the online newspapers started talking more about £3 million, which is a downgrade from the $12 million. I think $12 million is something like, I don't know, 10 or 11 million pounds. So the truth is, we don't know how much. It's somewhere between 3 million and 12 million, I would imagine. But like I say, they've sort of gone back to the $12 million reporting, I think, because it sounds a bit more juicy. Whereas I'm kind of the opinion that, although we don't know, but I am more of the opinion that £3 million would be more in line with what Andrew could afford. I mean, even if the late Queen bailed him out, which some people are speculating that she may well have done, I think 3 million is more within sort of his price bracket. But anyway, let's not get caught up on the millions. He paid a substantial settlement to Virginia. So the story says that the lawyer for Prince Andrew's accuser, Virginia Roberts, has revealed details of the multi-million-dollar settlement between his client and the Duke of York for the first time. Now, there was obviously a 12-month gagging clause. I don't know why it wasn't, a permanent gagging clause. I mean, the lawyers for Andrew, if they were hashing out a deal, I mean, from his side, I think, you would want a gagging order for life on this. But anyway, that obviously didn't happen. So attorney David Boys told the publication that Prince Andrew went from stonewalling to reaching a deal in less than a week because he just wanted out. Now let's cast our minds back to the time when this deal was actually settled and reached and agreed upon. It was just ahead of the Diamond Jubilee. And I think I've read other stories where Prince Andrew has sort of let slip that he felt pressured at that time to settle because of the Jubilee coming up. He didn't want matters to drag on and overshadow his mother's Jubilee. So feeling pressured, he did that. But people are saying that he didn't really want to do that, that he did want to go a bit further. But we'll get to that in a moment because it does get a bit juicy, because David Boys offers a challenge to Andrew, but we'll get to that. Let's carry on reading. So Boys thinks that Andrew can salvage his reputation, but only if he admits his sin by acknowledging wrongdoing in order for the public to forgive him. Well, I mean, if they're talking about books or interviews, I think we're getting into dodgy territory, aren't we? The comments came amid reports that the Duke believes he should have fought the claims by Roberts that he had with her 3 times when she was 17 years old, victim of course, Jeffrey Epstein. The statement said that Andrew never intended to malign Miss Giuffre's character, and he accepted that she had suffered as an established victim of abuse and as a result of unfair public attacks, but he did not apologise or accept any responsibility for those claims. A gag order remained in effect for a year, and now Virginia Roberts is said to be writing a memoir. Like I say, probably not a good deal for Andrew to pay out a substantial amount of money to that kind of tune and not have a permanent gagging clause. So speaking to the publication, Boys said that a TV interview wouldn't help Andrew's case, especially after the Prince's disastrous BBC interview in 2019. I don't think he's really good being put on the spot. I think he thinks he's better than he is when he's doing these sorts of interviews. I think he thought that he'd aced that interview with Emily Maitlis, and we all saw what we saw. Anyway, however, the lawyer does believe that a memoir, a book, might help his reputation, depending on what it said. Now, I think we've had enough royal books. I mean, it all started, didn't it? With the Wars of the Waleses back in the 90s. We had Diana, we had Charles, we had the interviews, we've had Harry. It doesn't really ever end that well. I mean, I'm of the belief that Diana and Charles shouldn't have done what they did back then. I'm sure, I can't speak for Diana and I can't really speak for Charles, but Charles did indicate that he was, regretful of his book and his interview, airing all of that dirty linen in public. And, I'm sure Diana, felt the same. I think she actually did indicate to friends as well that she felt a sense of regret at doing, especially the Panorama interview. And of course, now we know that she was gaslit into doing it. So I don't really think that the sins of the past should be used to justify the same mistakes in the future, which is why, I didn't really think that Harry should have done the memoir spare. I think, those are private matters, and I do think that they could have, tried to sort things out privately by drawing a line in the sand, being adult, just kind of, accepting that you're going to disagree on something and just moving forward with a more positive outlook. But anyway, if Andrew decides to do a book, that's going to kick up a lot of fuss for Charles and his new reign. So I will get to that in a moment. He said, I believe both as a matter of religious faith and human compassion in the possibility of redemption. I would not put Prince Andrew or any other child of God beyond the possibility of redemption, but redemption has to begin with the admission of sin, and thus far he has been disinclined to do that. I think that's always the first step, says Boys. The lawsuit against Andrew led to grimly comical scenes, of course, when they were trying to serve the papers at Royal Lodge. So it kind of talks about that for a bit. He says, a week before Andrew was due to be deposed, the case was settled. From our side, we said there had to be a substantial amount of money and there had to be an acceptable statement from Prince Andrew. Those were really the two initial stumbling blocks, and they were resolved within a few hours of each other, which is a sea change from Andrew being all defensive about it previously. So over a series of Zoom meetings and phone calls with Andrew's lawyers, the rest of the agreement was hashed out. Boys said Prince Andrew just wanted out. He was realistic enough not to have any demands. I think that ties in with my theory about the Jubilee. He just wanted to pay, not very much, and didn't want to acknowledge Virginia or what he'd done and what his position was that Virginia had made all this up and wasn't really a victim. Now, of course, we can't, this hasn't gone to a legal trial, so we can't cast aspersions. But anyway, that's what he said. He claimed he didn't know anything about Epstein's trafficking and had nothing to apologise for. As well as the legal defeats, Boys credited Andrew's change with him bringing in experienced counsel in the United States, referring to Andrew Brettler, I think you pronounce it, who at the time worked for Lavely & Singer, the law firm with a reputation for helping Hollywood stars make their problems disappear. Brettler was less reluctant to talk about the realities than maybe some of his UK counsel. The change in mood was the most dramatic that he's seen in his entire career. I can't think of a turnaround that changed as dramatically in such a short time as this one did. He said, "I have a sense that Andrew probably had mixed emotions. I suspect there was a substantial amount of relief, but also a substantial amount of discomfort as to what he had to acknowledge and the amount of money he had to pay." So definitely pertaining to a large amount of money. Boys declined to comment on the amount of money the Duke paid Roberts, adding that was one of Andrew's lawyers insisted he remain quiet about to avoid further embarrassment. Okay, so now we know kind of how this came about. We know that the turnaround was very quick, very last minute before the settlement. But I want to talk about Andrew's future. Where does this leave Andrew in relation to the monarchy, in relation to King Charles's new reign? I think there is definitely a problem, a future problem, a current problem in Andrew, in that what does he do? Sarah Ferguson is making money. She's already been to the US most recently, doing lots of interviews, and she's got a book to promote. She's making money, very much, I suppose, in a similar vein to Prince Harry and Meghan, except Sarah is divorced from the family. She is not an HRH. It's not even put in abeyance. She doesn't have it. Also, Duchess of York, she isn't a member of the aristocracy. She's using Duchess of York as a surname. So as a private person, she's slightly different position to Harry and Meghan. But she's making money. And I think now that Harry and Meghan have been making money the way that they've been making money, the doors are open for Andrew to forge a way of getting by, of making some money. He could potentially do TV interviews. He could potentially do book deals. Whether or not anyone would touch him with a barge pole is a different matter entirely. But he could seek to do it, and somebody could take him up on it, which could cause embarrassment, depending upon what he says, to the monarchy. And we know how disastrous his interview was with the BBC. So I don't think this is an avenue that King Charles would like Andrew to be going down. But what do? There are reports that King Charles has cut some of his funding. He no longer has his apartments at Buckingham Palace. So where does it leave Andrew? I think I read a report a few weeks ago about Andrew wanting to be in charge of the private royal parks, maybe even Windsor as well. So sort of Windsor Great Park, maybe Sandringham, Balmoral, a lot of the King's sort of estates, and that Andrew wanted to sort of run them, which apparently King Charles dismissed. Now, I would say don't be too hesitant, don't be too cautious. I think it could actually be potentially the best solution for Prince Andrew. It would keep him close, it would keep him quiet, it would keep him private, and it would give him a sense of purpose and something to do. At the moment, he's sat there at Royal Lodge twiddling his thumbs, not really doing anything, although I do think he could try and do lots of charity work, which we haven't seen examples of. But I do think a role where that keeps him busy, that also keeps him close. And I think that's one of the mistakes with Harry and Meghan. They weren't kept close. They were adrift and left to their own devices, which hasn't been particularly good. I think keeping Andrew close might not be such a bad thing, despite what King Charles might think about his brother and what his brother may or may not have done. I think keeping him close is not a bad idea. So I would say rethink it. If you can, King Charles, if you can give Andrew some kind of role within your monarchy, behind the scenes, stop him from going to America and doing interviews and book deals and whatever. It might not be a bad damage limitation. I'm just saying. Right, shall we move on to my next story? Again, another legal matter. Now, I'm no expert in USA visa law, but I do remember from a couple of years ago, it might be a couple of years, I can't remember when, but I've been trying to look for it and I can't find it. And it was all about Harry's visa Now, he could be on a spousal visa, or he could be on a visa that's for special people. So we don't know which visa he's on. I think the special person visa lasts for about 3 years. So there's talk that his visa is coming up for renewal, and we don't know which one that he's gone for. Anyway, we do know he's still a British citizen. We don't think he's tried to get USA citizen status at present. So an extension to whatever visa he's on is probably more the likely scenario. But since he did his book Spare, he admitted to using substances, banned substances, that the USA require you to disclose on any visa applications. And we don't think that he did disclose those substance misuses. Some of the substance misuses that he spoke about in his book are actually, I do believe, legal in the state of California. So I don't think they pose any particular risk. There is also the issue of potentially lying on forms and what that might entail. I don't know necessarily what the repercussions of that are. Could they send him back to the UK? I don't know. But the main one is, of course, the Class A substance misuses. And as far as I'm aware, in his book, he pertains to those being of a time period when he was younger, much younger. And I remember I read it somewhere, and I wish I could find it because I wanted to pop it on the screen, but I can't find it now. So if anyone knows where this is or can find an example, please share it with me, and I'll share it with you guys on the next video, because I do like to use receipts, but I can't find it. I've looked, I can't find it. But this thing that I read, and it was an official, government thing, it did say that any substance misuses that are within a certain time period, age period, I think it was. It might have been under 25 or under 21. But if it was a long time ago and you were under a certain age, apparently it doesn't bar you from visas or blah, blah, blah in the USA. Please, if you can find that for me, let me know and I will do an updated video. So I think that's the category that Harry probably falls into, because of course in the book, I do believe he only spoke about using them when he was young and under a certain age. So, I can't believe that the proofreaders would have been that stupid as to leave in something that could incriminate him. So yeah, although they did, the proofreaders did leave in, a big thing that put him in danger with, of course, the Taliban. So, it's not without the realm of possibility that something, that could incriminate him or expose him wasn't actually left in the book. So, we'll have to wait and see with that one. But if you do know anything a little bit more than me, if you are up on USA visa law, do leave a comment and let me know. But I don't think, let me just take a sip of my tea. By the way, mornings are for coffee and contemplation. There we go. So I don't know, but it is expected his visa is up for renewal, and we'll have to wait and see. But I don't see Harry coming back to the UK anytime soon, especially since Frogmore Cottage, is no longer being renewed in terms of the lease. I think they're out by June or July. I forget which is the latest month that is being reported. But anyway, I think they've got until after the coronation. But of course, Harry and Meghan could buy their own property in the UK, or they could, Charles could make something available for when they do visit. For example, a bit like a royal Airbnb. He could make Andrew's old apartments at the palace, or somewhere. He could make somewhere available. I also wanted to finish off by talking about things that I've seen. Well, not things. One in particular thing on TikTok and Twitter. There are so many twits on Twitter. There are so many things that are just fake out there. So be very, very careful what you watch and who you listen to. One sort of rambling idiot that I saw on there was spouting off a load of nonsense about inheritance tax and the British royal family, saying that when the Queen Mother left her, and I did a video on this a few videos ago, so if you want to watch that, take a look where I explain in detail about inheritance tax. So something about, you know, Harry and the royal family avoiding tax because of... Anyway, look, the only thing you need to know is that everyone in Britain, apart from sovereigns, and that includes former sovereigns, so the late Queen Mother would have been included as well, everyone pays inheritance tax. Now, there are ways that people can get around inheritance tax, for example, leaving things in trusts, blah, blah, blah. But sovereign to sovereign inheritance tax, they don't have to pay it. Also, the one thing that is also exempt is the Duchy of Cornwall. So when Prince Charles became king, the transfer to William, that was tax-free. Obviously, that's not... It's kind of inheritance, but not with a death involved. Anyway, so the Duchy of Cornwall is exempt, the Duchy of Lancaster is exempt, and sovereign to sovereign personal effects, cash, art, jewellery, all the rest of it is tax-free. So the Queen Mother left the bulk of her estate, art, jewellery, stamp collection, whatever, to the Queen. So that's sovereign to sovereign transfer, which was tax-free. Now, the Queen Mother could have left certain amounts of money to her grandchildren or whoever she wanted, which would have been subject to tax in the normal way. But the likelihood is, if she left any money to William and Harry, for example, or any of the other grandchildren, it would have been left in some kind of trust, which would limit the amount of inheritance tax. This, rule is commonly used by wealthy people to limit the amount of tax. So I just wanted to clear that up. There is no other, ill things going on. Sovereign to sovereign, tax-free, and of course, anything else. Everyone else is subject to the normal tax rules. Okay, so before I go, I am going to talk about my jewellery. I'll take the tiara off in a moment. This is a Canadian maple leaf brooch. Of course, the late Queen used to wear it. It was loaned on occasion to Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge at the time. And I do probably believe that, the new Queen Camilla will probably wear it as well. I'm also wearing one of Princess Anne's tiaras. This is the Meander tiara, and it was worn by Zara on her wedding day as well. So there we go. That's my beautiful tiaras. And I quite like this one because I can kind of stick it up like that. So you can kind of see it a little bit poking above my hairline. Okay, there we have it. Thank you for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed it, then please give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to share on social media, and of course do hit that bell so that you know whenever I upload a new video. So from me, mwah, to you all, and goodbye.